What's up, you guys? It's Zamora, and I am back just like I sorta promised in my preceding video that I would be. Tonight I wanted to discuss just shocking things that happen, or things that I just consider shocking. And there's plenty of them. For starters, one that affects me the most nowadays has to be food being artificial. Just learning about it, seeing about it, reading about it, hearing about it. And it's interesting. Back in 2012, that's when I really started to learn more about the food industry and the horrifying things that take place. And I just can't believe that in present times, you actually have to prove that something is real as opposed to you having a harder time getting something that's fake to become so popular. It's just weird that you have to question what's on your plate nowadays. And at least during my grandparents' times and their parents and the parents of their parents and all that, they didn't have to worry about this. So the fact that my parents and then their children, and then if I ever have them, my children are going to be part of a generation that is affected by this. It's pretty crazy stuff. Anyway, I'm sort of going to breeze through this, but I just wanted to make that note, and maybe one of these days I'll dive deeper into that topic, because it's something that I'm really intrigued by. So you can count on me discussing that at some point. Another thing that I find shocking is the killing of innocent people that we've been hearing about and reading about. It happens to be just random, like this wave of violence, and it's not only domestic but worldwide. Like, just it's crazy that as a species we're hunting each other. And wow, it gives me this heavy feeling to express this. And some of this stuff happens really close to home, and some of it, even though it happens in farther lands, doesn't mean that it doesn't affect me. Because they're still human beings. They're still someone's kids, brothers, sisters. And I try to put myself in their positions, and I know I would be devastated. So I just wish I understood why. Why do we have to focus on being centered in conflict? I know that as social creatures, we're going to have our disagreements. But how come we cannot, address them in healthier ways as opposed to violence? And the violence that's triggered by obsessions, it's like, why can we not tackle that a little differently? Or, I don't know, I'm not feeling the way things are going presently. That's what I want to say. Another thing that's shocking definitely has to be how the technology advances nowadays affect businesses. Because let me tell you something, my job is pretty simple, but we have integrated new things like new computers and all that. And it's not difficult for me to learn how to use it. But the fact that I have colleagues who did not necessarily grow up with that type of thing, they have been workers for much longer than I have, and they are used to conducting their tasks a little differently. For me, getting used to messing with a computer, it's easy because I grew up playing video games. I grew up using that internet. By the time I was 10, 11, that's when the computer became a normal part of my life for me. So I'm not intimidated by that when it's included in my job. But something that I kind of wish was still around was a little less of that, because I feel like I am not obtaining the necessary skills, hands-on skills, real labor skills that I could be getting, that that preceding generation got. And that's very important because it helps you with like your development as a human being and how to deal with things outside of your job. Like you go to school and you learn your stuff, that's awesome, but you should learn to do things with your hands when you get out of school. I admit that I have very, 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 very little manual skills. And that worries me because I'm not trying to blame anybody. I take full responsibility for me not learning that stuff because, let's face it, that stuff is boring. So I haven't tried too hard to learn about all that. But at the same time, I wish that in my culture, job culture, school culture, and all that, that was a little more promoted. I don't know, maybe I'm just expecting too much out of other people and the things that I do in the day and how I invest my time, but I mean, when I have a conversation with my mother, she tells me that a lot of things that she knows she learned in school. And I'm like, why isn't the state of education as effective as it was generations ago? I don't have a problem with things changing. I have a problem with things changing, but us seemingly regressing. So that's another one of those things that I guess I should discuss separately. But for now, I just want to lay these points out there and then have an idea of what kind of things I guess I could expand on. Um, Also, there's this thing where depending on where you reside, you may be living in a desert, like a food desert, meaning that you do not necessarily have access to a grocery store, and if you do have access to a grocery store, the quality is questionable. The origin of your food is questionable. And sometimes all you have are businesses that are just fast food. It's like, why are some zones difficult to sustain yourself? Like, why do they make it hard for you to get that? Is it deliberate, or does the land truly not support businesses flourishing? But I'm like, I'm sorry, but any place that has a certain like number of people living there, you would expect that that stuff gets addressed, you know? So, I don't know. Let's see. Wow, I had no idea that I created quite a good list. I've been so out of it that I have had to write things down, because otherwise, some things I just may not get to. And another thing that I'm thinking about is the way that people ignore traffic laws. Oh my God. I feel like when I started driving some 2 years ago, yeah, people were doing crazy things, but I feel like the more time passes, the weirder stuff gets on the road. Some people just don't deserve to have licenses, and unfortunately, they're not getting caught for that. And my life as a responsible driver is in peril thanks to these folks who just don't know what they're doing and they're in such a rush to get nowhere. So that worries me because I'll have my bad days when my reflexes may not be at optimal levels, and then that may cost me. I should be alright, on the days when I'm not alright, but that can be pretty overwhelming. Sometimes for me, something as simple as driving can be overwhelming. So, at any rate, also, money being electronic. Let me tell you guys something. Ever since I've had my job, and this is 2013, I hardly know what cash money is, except for the ones that, I handle at work. Let's think about that for a minute. When I was growing up, of course, I didn't have a bank account. I didn't need to have one. But I had money. Like, I could see it, I could feel it, and smell it sometimes, whenever you, like, new bills tend to have a strong scent to them. So, and then, that um, dusty feeling that they have, it's gross. But anyway, and I can tell you that in these 3 years that I have been having a paycheck regularly, I have not seen my money in cash like probably no more than $500 in cash. And we're talking about 3 years worth of work. That's crazy. All I see is numbers in my computer, and that lets me know how much I can obtain. And when I conduct a transaction at a checkout, same thing is happening. It's digital. I remember my mother would pay cash for everything. Everything. So, yeah, that's pretty shocking to me. I didn't think that when I grew up, my money was going to be different. Or not there, actually. It was just going to be a bunch of numbers and symbols. Yeah, wow. And I guess I mentioned this other point, which is how little I know about making things by hand. Yeah, that deserves a video of its own. You can count on it. At some point, I'll make it happen. Also, I have how kids don't know about previous generation technology. Oh my god, I love this. You guys remember that freaking telephone that you had to dial by turning that thing? I never knew how to use that phone. But I saw one in one of my grandparents' house, and I could never dial from that. To this day, I still don't know. And some kids don't know what cassette tapes are. They don't know the struggle of finishing a movie and then having to rewind that, and and if you wanted to rent something, you needed to wait a long time for that movie to come out. And not only that, you had to drive to the video store to get that and come home, and you have your stuff set up, hopefully. And then they will never know the struggle of your VCR getting dirty or something. And they'll also not know about cell phones not having cameras and all of that. And the backlight was green, and for some phones it was orange or blue. And the 8-bit type of graphic that it had, and those ringtones. Yeah, this is insane. I thought that technology was going to be around for a good while. I thought that my kids would grow with the stuff that I had, but no. My kids are going to know more about computers than I know now. Like, at some point, what I know right now about them is going to be obsolete. And I guess what shocks me about it is not the fact that we are advancing. It's the fact that it happens quickly, and that I'm not always keeping in touch with that. So at any rate, also stereotypes, basing assumptions off a particular race and clothes. Should be pretty self-explanatory. These are issues that we read about and hear about on a daily basis, and we've been bombarded with it since our time in school. But when I was in school, I really didn't think of myself as someone who was possibly being stereotyped, and I didn't view a group with a stereotype. The only stereotype I guess I had is that I thought that all guys were just into video games. For some reason, I just assumed that. And when I went to school, I was pretty shocked by the number of people who were not playing video games. Yeah, that was quite astonishing for me. Also, how toxic our environment is. Oh my goodness. Today, I was driving to the movie theater, and the route that I need to take is pretty forested. Like, there's trees on both sides of the road. Well, they decided that they're going to start trimming some of that to build up more retail. Like, this city doesn't have enough retail as it is. It's sickening. And the worst part of that is that in that route, I actually had shade. Now, when I drive by it, the sun is like toasting me. And eventually, I'm going to be reading and seeing this. We're going to have more floods, and, animals are going to start doing weird things because they're going to need to relocate and all that. And it's going to be a zoo on that side of town. But anyways, and I just wish there's something we could do, like stop destroying the environment. We need to take that seriously, because eventually we are going to make this planet miserable to inhabit, and we are already experiencing those symptoms. Yeah. And then finally, the last point I seem to have made is how dispersed people are or seem to be. And to address this, I'm going to use myself for example. I don't have any family here. You guys know that. I only have my mother with me. And I have a cousin that's somewhere in North Carolina. He used to live with us for a little bit back in 2006-7. And then I also have a cousin I want to say 80 miles away. I haven't seen her ever since I reside in my current state. However, that should just let you know about how spread out we tend to be as families. A lot of my colleagues also expressed that they don't have their family with them. Some of them are in other states or distant cities. And then the reason I said seem to be is because even though we have the means to get to them, like we have airplanes, they're not always affordable, but could take a flight and visit them. It's not that it's impossible to see them, it's just that the greater reality of life is that you're separated from your family more than close-knit. And it's no secret that that's part of the reason why I feel so lonely and bummed out a lot. I've always wanted a family. I've always needed a family. And just anybody who hasn't grown up without having one of their parents or having no one to really confide in when you're growing up, unless you've gone through that, you won't understand the toll that it takes on you mentally. I'm not trying to use this as an excuse, but you will be more prone to experiencing challenges that you shouldn't be facing. Like for me, I'm terribly shy, yet I have no problems with getting things done on my own, but I hate making eye contact with people when I'm not at my job. I don't try to go out of my way to be doing things for people, unless I see something that I need to own. Like one time I was at a parking lot, someone's cart was rolling away and they didn't realize it. I was dashing toward that cart, especially given that the lady was a little on the older side. So, that I will always respond and help, but I feel physically stressed out at the idea of being approached by some stranger. And trust me, they will want to say something to you, especially at the gym. And at the gym, it's not the best place for me to be in a socializing mindset because I'm trying to get my exercises done in a certain amount of time. And I also get through work. And sometimes I feel like I'm not getting that vital space that I used to get for myself. And then I used to supply with the only person I needed. But, little things like that. There are so many little things, but they add up and cripple you in a bigger scale. And when you don't have advice and you only have yourself to rely on, there's only so much yourself can do. So, at any rate, well, you guys, that is all that I have for you on this matter. What did you think? What do you agree with? What do you... your own little list of things that shock you? I want to hear all that. And like always, guys, thank you so much for watching and for your unconditional support. And yeah, I will do the best I can to be here a little more often. And don't be surprised if I return like as soon as, a minute later. Because I'm really excited about talking. Like, I would pretty much be curled up still, like a waterfall of tears, but this helped me get over it. Like, I can actually speak without cracking my voice. And yeah, that's a clear sign of progress. All right, you guys, take care and see you soon.